Translation. In every yuga, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, assumes the form of siddhas, such as Sanaka, to preach transcendental knowledge. He assumes the form of great saintly persons, such as Yajnavalkya, to teach the way of karma. And he assumes the form of great yogis, such as Dattatreya, to teach the system of mystic yoga. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. For the benefit of all human society, not only does the Lord assume the form of Manu as an incarnation to rule the universe properly, but he also assumes the form of a teacher, yogi, jnani, and so on, for the benefit of human society. The duty of human society, therefore, is to accept the path of action enunciated by the Supreme Lord. In the present age, the sum and substance of all Vedic knowledge is to be found in Bhagavad Gita, which is personally taught by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the same Supreme Godhead, assuming the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, expands the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita all over the world. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is so kind and merciful to human society that he is always anxious to take the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Sakshu Sumiritam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Nastapreshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhagavati Naistiki. By constant recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troubles from within the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the Supreme Lord is established as an irrevocable fact. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Shrimati Shivaram Swami Tinamine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivase Sunyavadi Pasata Desacharine Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavinbhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasti Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. Very well. Thanks everybody for coming. Just like to ask the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas here before I speak. Originally I was only going to give class on text 8, which is the one on the board, but something happened. Maharaj turned up and we had to move things around, so I ended up getting text 6 as well, which is the purport I actually wanted, which is all about performing the Sankirtan Yajna in this age of Kali. And also the previous purport, Srila Prabhupada also mentions the importance of Sankirtan Yajna. So this chapter is entitled The System of Universal Management. So the theme of today's class, I don't usually like telling people what the theme is in case I deviate from my own theme, but I think today I'll mention it. The theme is going to be about leadership and how Krishna empowers leaders, especially in ISKCON, and how we shouldn't deviate from the instructions of the Vaishnavacharyas, and we should stick to the main point. And I'm also going to talk a bit about the Sankirtan Yajna because it's in the purport and it's a very important point now. So the system of universal management. So the previous verse is all explaining about the different manus that rule the universe. Krishna has a very easy job in one sense. He just gives the responsibility to others. He doesn't really want to get too involved. That's not his main purpose. He just wants to enjoy loving affairs with his devotees. So he's empowering certain living entities like Manu. And there are 14 Manus. It's explained here. At the moment we're in the 7th Manu, Vaivasvata Manu. Every 4 yugas, it's called a Chatu Yuga, the saints and the rishis get together. Because you can imagine, at the end of Kali Yuga, there's going to be a lot of upheaval and a lot of disturbance. So when Satya Yuga comes, he explained the Satya Yuga comes as a pleasant smell of sandalwood in the air. Yes. And then people know Satya Yuga is here. So all the saints and the rishis get together and they have to re-establish religious principles according to parampara. Evam parampara praptam imam rajasura vidi. So the main purpose is to re-establish religious principles so people can get an opportunity to obtain Krishna consciousness and return home back to Godhead. There is no other reason. And in every yuga, the Supreme Lord assumes a Pacific incarnation, as is explained here, to teach the Manus the way, as explained originally. He's explained the knowledge to the sun god Vivasvan, and he explained it to Ishvaku, and Ishvaku in turn explained it to Manu. Manu explained it to his sons and grandsons. So in this way, the knowledge is passed through the disciplic succession, and then as we get it, it comes in its entirety without being broken. But then, of course, the knowledge was broken at one point. So then Krishna, again, 5,000 years ago, he re-established the parampara by speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. So in this way, it was again re-established, and now it's continuing again to us. Yeah. So this is very important. I'm going to speak a bit about leadership here. But before I go on any further, I'm just going to tell a nice story. It's about Krishna and Balaram. It's connected with the class. It will become clearer later on why I'm telling this story, if I've explained the class properly, that is. So once upon a time, Krishna and Balaram were in the forest with their boyfriends, the coward boys. And because the coward boys and Krishna and Balaram had missed breakfast, they were feeling very hungry. So they approached Krishna and they said, "You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the killer of great demons. But today, can you please satisfy our hunger?" So Krishna said, "Close by there are some Brahmins doing a yajna. Go to them and ask them for some foodstuffs." But Krishna said, before you go, you have to be very careful, because these Brahmins, they're not Vaishnavas. They're just smarter Brahmins. They're just interested in chanting hymns, but actually they're not even qualified to chant our names. They're too puffed up and proud. Krishna says, Veda sarve ahamma eva vedyo. Krishna is the beginning and end of all Vedic knowledge. Bhaktaram yagyat pasam. He is the benefactor of all yagyas and work performed. But these Brahmins were so proud of their Brahminical qualification that they couldn't understand this. So then the coward boys went to the house of the Brahmins. And there they saw these Brahmins doing this great sacrifice. Svaha, 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 throwing grains into the fire. And so they came up to the Brahmins and they started glorifying the Brahmins. "Oh, you earthly demigods, you are the topmost of all humanity. You know Vedic knowledge perfectly well." Just like on Sankirtan, right? When we want to we glorify, we puff them up a bit, don't we? Sometimes I go to people and I say, "Oh, I was standing over there and I just noticed your effulgence. You're looking very effulgent today, sir. And your wife's very beautiful. Even though she's ugly, she's very beautiful. There's a book for you. Oh, you're a very polite chap. Here's £10. So the coward boys like the original Sankirtan devotees. So they're puffing up the ego of the Brahmins. You're so great. You know Vedic knowledge perfectly. Therefore, you should know that Krishna and Balaram are close by. They are feeling very hungry. And therefore, you should give everything you have to Krishna and Balaram. And what was the reaction they got? Nothing. They didn't even want to waste their breath. You know, like someone so insignificant that you don't even want to waste your breath on that person. That's what it was like. They were just so absorbed in their rituals and their ceremonies that, you know, the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord were there in front of them and they just wasn't interested. So then the coward boys went back to Krishna and Balaram, and Krishna, being the omniscient Supreme Lord, he knew exactly what happened. He was smiling. He said, it's okay. When you go out collecting funds and begging, you're going to come across people that are going to say no, it's natural. You know, those that have been on Sankirtan, right? It's normal, so it's okay, carry on. Go back, but this time go to the wives of the Brahmins, because the wives, they are my pure devotees. They are constantly engaged in thinking of me. And so the coward boys went back there to the house of the Brahmins, and there they saw the Brahmins' wives, beautifully decorated, sitting next to the fire, effulgent. And so they went up to the ladies and they said, dear mothers, Krishna and Balaram are close by, they're feeling very hungry. Could you please give us some foodstuffs to eat? And immediately, as soon as they heard that, they got up. And they started filling up boxes of nice food preparations. And because the yajna was going on, there was very nice food to eat. So they filled up these boxes. And they were very eager to go. Even though they were stopped by their husbands and their sons and their relatives, stopped from going. They didn't care. And Srila Prabhupada explains this is the nature of a pure devotee. As soon as Krishna's calling, the pure devotee goes without any considerations of family, relative, anything like that. The pure devotee just goes like Srila Prabhupada explains, like a river flows to the sea. Because they were meditating on Krishna, hearing Krishna's pastimes, they had this longing, this urge to want to see Krishna. So then they entered the forest of Vrindavan, and there they saw on the bank of the Yamuna river Krishna with his friends. And it's explained in the 10th canto. Srila Prabhupada explains what Krishna looks like. He was standing there with one arm on one of the coward boy's shoulder, and the other hand he had a lotus flower, and his dhoti was glittering gold, and he had lilies decorating his ears, and all over his body was the dust of the minerals of Vrindavan was smothered. So you can imagine the beautiful sight that these ladies saw, the object of their love, Krishna. And it's explained that it's like they were drinking Krishna with their eyes, nectar. You know, it was eye to eye, face to face. And Krishna entered their hearts through their eyes. Like this. And then, of course, they met Krishna, and Krishna was happy to see them. They gave all the food, offered it to Krishna. And Krishna said that you are the topmost devotees, because without any consideration of personal motivation, you didn't consider your family or anything. You just came directly to me. This is the topmost mood of devotional service. Don't consider yourself. Just Krishna's calling, just go. And then Krishna said, you should return to your husbands now, because they are Brahmins and they need your help. And it said, when Brahmins are doing a sacrifice, if you're Grahastha, both the husband and wife have to be there for the sacrifice to be complete. And of course the ladies, they didn't want to go. They said, you are the Supreme Lord. Whoever you take in your shelter, whoever you accept, you have to take him under your lotus feet. And we want to stay here under the protection of your lotus feet. And Krishna said, no, you go and see your husbands. They said that husbands will neglect us because we left. We didn't follow the instructions. Krishna said, don't worry, they won't neglect you. So the ladies went back. And of course, their husbands were very happy to see them. And they were actually lamenting their sinful behavior. They were lamenting, why did we neglect Krishna? Or we was interested in chanting Vedic hymns and this mundane ritual, but we forgot the main point of the whole ceremony, and that is to please Krishna. And they were lamenting like this, to the hell with our Brahminical qualification, to the hell with our Vedic learning, to the hell with this, to the hell with that. If we don't have devotion for Krishna, then it's all a complete waste of time. So in this way, they came to their their senses. So, so here it's explained that the knowledge is passed down through disciplic succession. And leadership, I wanted to speak a bit about leadership in ISKCON. So, the guru is actually an inspirer of man. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever great man performs, or whatever great man does, others will follow. So what is Krishna talking about? He's not talking about a manager, he's talking about a leader. A leader is an inspirer of men. He's not a controller of men. He inspires people due to his qualities. Yeah? Not that you control someone, and by controlling them through fear or another way, then they will do what I say. And that's a manager. A manager, they deal with every day-to-day activities, the running of the temple. Whereas a leader, he has long-term vision and spiritual vision. And we're obviously talking about spiritual leaders. So there's a difference between the two. Sometimes we expect managers to be leaders, but they're not. They don't have the qualities. Yashasti bhaktiya bhagavati yakinchana sarve gunas tatra samasite suraha. Haru bhaktasya kuto mahatguna manaratana sati devato bahi. It's explained that one who has unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord, or it's also translated as unalloyed devotion, but I'll keep to unflinching devotion for the Supreme Lord, then that person will acquire all the qualities of the demigods. But he who is not a devotee only has material qualities which are of little value, because he's hovering on the mental plane and he's assured to be attracted by the glaring material energy. So, unflinching means that someone whose faith is steady. It doesn't move in any circumstance. Like the Himalaya mountains or the northern star, the pole star. Fearless. Just like Draupadi, Ashvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, he beheaded the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. What a horrific ordeal to go through. But, Arjuna was very angry, which is rightly so. He said, I'm going to cut off the head of Ashvatthama and bring it to you, and then you can stand on his head and take your bath. And then you can do the funeral ceremony of your sons. So a very horrific situation, but not once did Draupadi or Arjuna or anyone blame Krishna. They didn't say, oh Krishna, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You're living in our house, just like our family. You are the controller of everything. Why did you do this to us? Not once did she. That's unflinching. Not in any circumstance does your faith in Krishna disappear. And that person acquires all the qualities of the demigods. Now, sometimes we confuse material qualities to be spiritual qualities, especially in the past. Someone has a material ability. They may be able to go out and collect loads of money, distribute loads of books, speak very nicely, very charismatic. And we take that as a spiritual quality. In one sense, it is a spiritual quality if it's used in Krishna's service. Devotional service. You see, the word service, our service can actually get in the way of our devotion to Krishna. Does that make sense? Let me explain. If you take devotional out of service, what does it become? Service. And Srila Prabhupada explains that service can be any type of service to humanity, to our family, to our society, just like people are doing outside so much. Devotional means that there is some loving exchange there between one person and another. So if you take away the word devotional from service, then it just becomes service to our family. We clock in the morning, we clock in the evening, job done, bus. But as far as anything else, carrying out the Yuga Dharma, I've done my service. So we have to be very careful our service doesn't become service. Sorry, our devotional service doesn't just become service. Therefore the main point I'm trying to make here is just like the Brahmins, they were puffed up with and proud of their learning. So many qualities. We have to make sure that we don't become like that, especially the leaders, because the leader is meant to be an inspirer. And a leader is not meant to deviate from the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And those instructions as explained here, they're also given through the rishis, the saints, the yogis, the Manu. And when there is no qualified Manu to take on the post, the Supreme Lord has to take that position himself. So we don't want to be in a position where there's no one qualified in this one so Krishna has to come down himself. May not be a bad thing. But when there's no one qualified, then Krishna takes that post. But Krishna wants qualified personalities. He wants qualified living entities. But the point is, the leader never deviates from the instructions of the previous acharyas. Evam paramparatam imam rajasui vidi. That process has to come down its entirety, that knowledge has to be unchanged. It has to be in its entirety. Just like when you get a mango from a tree, you can throw a stick down and it will smash down on the floor. Or you can have a chain of people passing it down, and when you get the mango, it's pure. It's in its ripe form. We mustn't deviate in any time. So we have to be very careful. So what is the leaders have to have qualities of Brahminical qualities. Why? As he explained, if you cut off the head, then the body is useless. You may have some arms and a stomach and some legs, but they're not going to be able to work properly without the head because they've got no brain. So imagine if the Brahmins, there were no Brahmins, only the Kshatriyas ruled. What would happen? There would be a lot of wars probably, right? Because that's what Kshatriyas like doing, fighting wars. Just like before the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna was trying to come to some sort of agreement and understanding between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. They were obviously having meetings, We're good at having meetings in ISKCON. Meeting for this, meeting for that. Let's have a meeting to decide when we're going to have a meeting. So we've got to have a meeting because we've been thinking about postponing that meeting. So anyway, they were having meetings and it didn't work. So what did the Kshatriyas do? They can only sit through so many meetings at the point where they get their sword out. And okay, now you're going to feel the tip of my blade. That's a Kshatriya. So the Brahmins, they have to keep the Kshatriyas in check. They have to make sure they don't go AWOL. Because they're very passionate. So imagine if the leaders had Vaishya qualities, predominantly, not Brahminical. What would happen then? Huh? Yeah. They'll see every opportunity to make money because that's what Vaishyas do. Instead of preaching Krishna consciousness, how can we make money from this situation? There's going to be a big earthquake. 50% of the population are going to die. Okay, so maybe we can make some money from this. We'll do some funeral ceremonies or something, I don't know. Make some money from it. Imagine if the leaders mainly had Sudra qualities. What would happen? So the leaders had predominantly Sudra qualities, nothing would happen. Because the Sudras, they just sit around waiting for everyone else to tell them what to do. They're not dynamic, like the higher caste. So it's very important that the leaders have Brahminical qualities. Sama, Damastapa, Socham, Sama, peacefulness, Dharma, dharmic principles, Tapa, austerity. It seems like these days, in ISKCON, the word austerity is shunned upon. We don't like to engage in too much austerity. But life is meant for two things, austerity and yajna. Yajna, we know what a yajna is. Lord Chaitanya Prabhupada mentioned here in the purple. It is the Sankirtan yajna. Kali Kalera Dharma Nama Krishna Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vinanahe Tare Pravatan. In this age of Kali, the fundamental religious principle is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And unless we are empowered by the Supreme Lord, we cannot preach Krishna consciousness. So empowerment, empowering leaders, having Vaishnava qualities, devotional qualities. In this way we become empowered to follow the instructions of the acharyas and not to deviate from those instructions. And in this way we get the mercy to preach. Where was I previously? Yeah. Right, okay. Yeah, so leader, Brahminical qualities. Okay, yeah, I remember now. Tapasya, austerity. So we have to perform some austerity. And the austerity is, actually, in this age, we don't need to manufacture any false austerity. We don't need to sit on our heads or go and sit in a lake in the middle of winter or, thrash our backs with whips or anything like that. That's not recommended. The austerity is performing the yajna, the Sankirtan yajna. And in this age, well, it seems like sometimes, this is my understanding, opinion, you may differ, but it seems like sometimes the yajna itself has become the yajna. In other words, the Yuga Dharma, the sacrifice, has been sacrificed for so many other things which are more important. With little respect for austerity. I don't want to go out on Harinam because it's raining today. I don't want to get wet. It's too cold. I don't want to go out on book distribution. There's a saying, I've heard it quite often, that everything is Sankirtan. Have you heard that saying? Whether you're worshipping deities or whether you're bleaching the toilets or bleaching your hair or managing the temple, it's all Sankirtan Prabhu. Well, you know what? It is and it isn't. It is all Sankirtan if you're on the transcendental platform. It is all Sankirtan. But if we're not on the transcendental platform, then it's not Sankirtan. I'll give you an example. Srila Gorakshore Das Babaji, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta met him, what was he doing? He was just sitting, chanting in a toilet, chanting the holy name. And why was he chanting in a toilet? Because he didn't want to attract materialistic people. But it's not that he wasn't performing Sankirtan. His Sankirtan was Prema Sankirtan. Because he was a pure devotee. He was chanting the pure name of God, of Krishna. And such a personality, also Haridas Thakur, their chanting benefits the whole world. And he obviously gave initiation reluctantly to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he spread the Krishna conscious movement throughout of all of India. So he made Srila Gorakshore Das's internal Sankirtan manifest externally. So unless we're on that level, we can't say everything's Sankirtan. Because it isn't. Only on the transcendental platform is it all Sankirtan. Kali Kalera Dharma Nama Krishna Sankirtan. Krishna Shakti Vira. I've said that already. Was that one? Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalu nastiva, nastiva, nastiva gati anyata. In this age of Kali, there is only one means of deliverance, and that is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Or is there another way? Maybe, did we read it wrong? Is there another way? Sometimes it seems like there are so many ways. Sometimes it seems like there are so many more things important. And the result of this mentality that everything's Sankirtan is that the Sankirtan Yajna is not always performed that it should be at its fullest level. I I've also heard devotees say, well, if you think of Sankirtan, I am not able to do Sankirtan, but if you think of it, it's the same as doing it. Again, if you're on the spiritual platform, yes, it's the same, but if you're not, you may just be using that as an excuse not to physically perform the yajna. But Krishna, Lord Chaitanya wants us to physically perform it, not just think about performing it. To go out physically in the rain. And the result is that book distribution is on a huge downward spiral. It is going down and down and down. Even though we have great marathons, but outside the marathon, not much happens as far as book distribution throughout the whole country. And the Harinams are becoming less and less and less devotees are actually interested in Harinam, which is the Yuga Dharma. So, if we want to spread Krishna consciousness throughout the whole world, we have to actually practice what we're preaching. Otherwise, we're hypocrites. And people are not stupid. People are actually intelligent. People are interested. Generally, people are not interested so much in philosophy. They're interested in seeing people. They're interested in that exchange with another personality. And if they see that these people are actually practicing what they're saying, then they will be attracted. If they come here in the morning, and they see one or two people in the kirtan, and then they go for breakfast and they see the whole prasadam room full of devotees, and they will think, hey, hang about, what's going on here? Are these people actually practicing what they're saying? Or maybe I should go somewhere else. So this is called being a leader, following the instructions of the previous acharyas in its entirety. And in this age of Kali, there is only one means of deliverance, and that is chanting the holy name of the Lord. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. It's not becoming an expert manager. Or maybe I should clean the toilets instead of coming to kirtan. Maybe I should do this or do that instead of performing the most important activity. Queen Kunti Prajanma Ishwarya Shuta Shribi Edamana Madahapumam Nivayati Abhida Tam Vai Tvamakinchana Gocharam. She prays, she says that Krishna, you are very easily approachable, but only by those who are materially exhausted. Those who are on the path of Janma, high birth, Aishwarya, material opulence, Shruta, education, should be a beauty. They cannot approach you with sincere feeling in their heart. So, Janma, birth, we may think I'm born in an Indian family, I have an Indian body, I'm a Brahmin, I'm so elevated. And these lower people, these malechas and yavanas, trying to practice Krishna consciousness, we can become puffed up with our birth. Ishwarya, devotees generally don't have to worry too much about Ishwarya. Krishna generally doesn't give us much. That's his mercy on us. But if we do have opulence, then we have to be very careful that we don't become enamored with it and become puffed up. Shuta, learning. We have to be careful, even studying Prabhupada's books. Oh, now I'm such a great pundit. You know, I can give amazing class. It seems like these days we're more into learning, right? Which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Because in the early days when we joined, we would go out and book distribution 6 days a week, and there was no time for reading Prabhupada's books. We had one day off. You would read in the car on the way to the spot. And you know what happens when you do that, especially after a nice breakfast. You start reading on page 10 and you wake up, you're on page 110. You think, wow, I've read so much today. Fantastic. I can't remember a thing I've read, but it's good. I'll take a bit of rest when I get to the spot. So, the fact that devotees want to get educated, this is a good thing. only if that education brings you to the point of humility and understanding that I have to develop some devotion for Krishna. Otherwise, it's, you hang a certificate around your neck, bloating to everyone, and it's a complete, utter, useless waste of time. If it doesn't take us to the point of loving service to Krishna. But I think things have gone a bit too extreme one way, the other way now. We're too much into the theory, and we're neglecting the practice. So we have to be careful we don't neglect, because the whole point of Prabhupada's books is to help us come to the point of practicing, not neglecting the practice, not becoming too mental, theoretical. Hundreds of verses, this, doing essays and this and that, but we're neglecting the Yuga Dharma, which is Harinam Sankirtan. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way other than chanting the holy name of the Lord. So we have to purify ourselves, and then we have to give Krishna to others. Just like Krishna said to the wives of the Brahmins, he didn't say just stay here now. He said, no, you go back home to your relatives, and the result was that they all became devotees. Right? It wasn't that they just wanted, Krishna said, no, you can just stay here now. No, you've got responsibilities. You've got to give Krishna consciousness to others. Lord Chaitanya said, become a guru. Everyone should become a guru. Vatma Padaksha Guru, Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru, doesn't matter. Become a guru. Give Krishna consciousness to others. But if you haven't got anything to give, what are you going to give? If we're shallow, duplicitous, deceitful, what are we going to give? So therefore we have to purify our hearts as well. So let me just sum up. So it's very important that the leaders in our society develop Brahminical qualities and they do not deviate from the instructions of the Vaishnava Acharyas which Srila Prabhupada is giving us. And that is the topmost instruction is the holy name of the Lord, to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, to distribute it in the form of Srila Prabhupada's books also. How is Srila Prabhupada's books Kirtan? Does anyone know? How is a book Sankirtan? It's a book. Anybody know? Sorry?
You give the book to somebody,
Yeah.
and that person actually goes through the book, reading, and he is attracted towards Krishna.
Yeah. 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 That's it. Well, Srila Prabhupada said, my books are kirtan in word form. And the ultimate aim of the books is to get people to chant the holy name of the Lord. That's the ultimate aim. Just like recently, in the summer we do these big festivals, music festivals, 50, 60,000 young kids go there. And we was at one festival, and there was one girl, and she said, I got a book previous year from you guys, and she said, recently I was in a car with 4 of my friends, and the car was just started spinning around. They went into some sort of accident. It was spinning on the motorway. And she said, all my friends were screaming, like you do in an accident. But she said, I had my hands folded like this, and I was chanting the Maha Mantra. And she said, I felt very peaceful. Can you imagine that? So when you go out and preach, you develop faith. Those that don't preach, they don't develop that faith. And quite often you hear things like, oh, why do we need to distribute books? And these come from some leaders of ISKCON. Why do we need to carry on distributing? People don't want to be bothered. Why do we need to hassle them? Book distribution is not that important. Harinam, well, I don't really want to go on Harinam, standing in a bed sheet. People, we're not attracted to that. Our preaching should be more in kami clothes and, people are not interested in seeing us. But that's wrong. You ask any book distributor. Just yesterday, I stopped someone and the lady said, when I was a young girl, I used to see the Hare Krishnas in saffron robes dancing up and down. And I used to feel so happy seeing you guys. Where are you now? And Dhananjaya Prabhu, same thing he said to me yesterday, he met this person the other day, same thing. And those that go out and Sankirtan Harinam book distribution, they meet these people every day. And they say, where are the Hare Krishnas now? We've become plain-clothes Hare Krishnas, that's where we are. People are actually attracted to the philosophy in its purity, not watered down philosophy. That doesn't attract people. But only because we don't have faith, then we think that people are not attracted to Krishna consciousness in its pure form. Therefore we have to dilute it, make it a bit more palatable. And the result is, the book distribution has gone down, there's less Harinams, and people are not joining the temples like they used to. I can't remember the last white face I saw, English-speaking white face that joined the temple. Which country are we in? We're in England, right? Sometimes you can think that we're in India, in Bombay, because all you see is Indian devotees, right? But this is England. Other than Eastern Europe and India, the rest of the world, as far as Krishna consciousness goes, is not really doing that well if you think about it. Most of the temples in Europe are empty. Where's all the Spanish-speaking devotees, Italian-speaking, French, Swedish, German? Where are they? All the temples are just full of East Europeans and Indians. So where are the English-speaking? There's one here, Govinda. He's been a devotee for many, many years though. Oh, he's Scottish. Okay. He's English. Sadashiva's Welsh. So where are they? So if that philosophy, Rasa Prayana, when did he join? 5 years ago? Huh? He joined about 5 years ago, right? So since him, no English white person has joined this temple. So what are we doing wrong? So is it true that people are not attracted to Krishna consciousness in its purity? People are actually wanting us to stand on the streets in saffron robes, banging mridangas and cartels. They're dying to see us there, actually. But we're not. We're too busy doing so many other things which are more important. Anyway, it's getting late now. Hare Krishna. Any questions?